Um, it's so difficult to explain what that is though, unless you experience it, of like really like, okay, I'm doing this fleeting note, but because I'm adding it to this dialogue partner, now it's alive and I'm thinking of the next note that's going to be added to it. And it's such an interesting way of working that feels different. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, please.
yeah. Actually wrote a fleeting note, a permanent note on that, which is basically I wrote about how a notes first approach actually leads to you following your curiosity, making the work more enjoyable. I don't think I wrote that in the permanent note. That was more in the fleeting note section. But yeah, that
Let me
was
let me
quite
just take a
interesting.
yeah. I'm just looking through your questions here. I'm gonna go ahead and look for one of your permanent notes here.
If you go to my page, like capture page, I've actually saved timestamps for them, so it's easy for me to refer back.
Perfect. Let's take a look.
Wrote quite a few.
Just gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here.
Initially, I sort of misunderstood what's the like how we progress through the stages.
Mm-hmm.
So um, halfway through processing my fleeting notes, I stopped doing it because I had to do something else. So I came back to it a few hours later, and then that's probably why there's some repetition. But after like watching the coaching sessions with Daljit, I realized that no, it's supposed to happen in one go.
That one was a
So
good one, wasn't it?
yeah, it was
That
really
one was really
nice.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this because like basically how I can tell is by the time you get to the bottom, like the most child of child blocks, it's
Yeah.
usually like an exclamation mark. That's how that no, that's like even on mine, it's like that's how it goes. It's like that's how you know that it's working.
Yeah, that's I basically got
There.
the idea from you and watching like a few other people form the note, fleeting notes because that immediately drew my attention to those parts, and I
Mhm.
was like, okay, how do I make this easier for my future self when I don't have time and I've got this giant text that might uh, basically create some resistance. So I was like, okay, let me use these capital letters and like speech marks, which kind of like focus my attention to that, so I can see the moments where I had that insight and like it all clicked.
Yeah. I don't I mean you've got it. You got it. I mean, what else do you want me to say? I mean, you got it. You got it. You got it really good. You completely understand it. And it's just like, you got it.
Mm. Okay.
Drowning myself in microeconomics. That is great. I mean, just look at this, man. This is so beautiful. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. It's amazing. This is what I want you to do.
Yep.
Or here's what I want to ask. How do you capture a fleeting note?
So up till now, I was reading mainly of iBooks,
Mm-hmm.
and I recently found out that the Readwise extension is a bit buggy.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, if you read from a Kindle and you take notes, they automatically indent it under the highlight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easier for you to distinguish between your own notes and the highlights. But the problem with iBooks is that um, it will it won't indent anything, and it will only basically add a notes tag to the first paragraph or like the first sentence, and once you space it, it all gets confused. So a few days ago I showed you like this whole mess of my notes,
Mm-hmm.
which was synced over to Readwise, and because of that I was kind of being overwhelmed because there's just so much writing.
Too
So
much.
since then I've changed my approach completely. So I've started reading on Kindle instead, and Instapaper. And yesterday, for the first time, I started using Otter to like record like the fleeting notes I have when I listen to podcasts. Like I went for a run today, and my default way of capturing those notes is to basically write on drafts.
Mm-hmm.
But because that kind of adds another friction, because when I'm running or doing something, I have to kind of like look down and take out my phone and start typing.
Yeah.
So that friction basically meant that I was.
Why is it important to not have friction when you're capturing?
If there's friction, you're less likely to do it, and it's kind of like yeah, it's basically you're less likely to do it, and you're more likely to say think that you can rely on your memory, basically.
Yeah,
and
it makes it
that's a
hard.
recipe
That's
for
like,
you.
yeah, and then it's like, why would I put? It's like I took these boulders off, like I took these rocks off of your shoulders, and then you're like, I'm gonna put some stones into my pockets, though. You know what I mean? That's what it sometimes feels like.
Yeah. So so I just need to try out Otter for a few more times to see if it actually how I can optimize the workflow, because I realized the same thing happened to me that you mentioned happening to you, that I took the time to actually dictate the podcast episode, like the name of the podcast, the episode, and the timestamp.
Yeah.
And by the time I got down to capturing the first thoughts, I'd already forgotten the second and third thoughts.
So what I'd like to do is, just like any good coach, it's all about mechanics, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not I'm better than, it's nothing like that. A coach is this, they meet you eye to eye and they go, let me just take a look at your golf swing. And that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to take a look, because listen, you got the mechanics, you completely understand the fundamentals of Zettelkasten, right? You don't create a new note until you look at Zettelkasten. You look through all the notes, you add the note where it goes. It can fit anywhere. It's just a conversation that you want to continue. You see what a critical mass of notes looks like, even though it's not in your words. You got a semblance of, if you imagined if it was in your words, how powerful that could be. So that's going to be like the target. And then you take all that away. Now it's all about workflow and process, and start building it out on your own. Have you started your own Zettelkasten yet?
Yes. So the second to last notes, the thing is, I haven't written a permanent note. I did everything else. I just haven't written a permanent note for it, because it's got. I remember you saying that because it's going to be in a different slip box. The wording needs to be different, because the way I wrote the initial permanent note in the shared graph was based on the conversation I was continuing.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of.
Can you show me? Can you show your screen?
Yeah.
Show me.
1 sec. Let me just open my share graph.
Your personal graph.
Yeah, my personal graphs. So, where is it? Okay, yeah, it's unfortunately opened the shared one instead of my personal one. Let's see. Notes. Here it is. Right. So, okay. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Yep. So these were all my fleeting notes. I think this is everything. Mm-hmm. This is the same one that I have in the shared graph.
That's perfect, because the fleeting and the literature notes and the reference notes can all stay from the shared graph into your new graph. It's just when you make a new permanent note. Can you shift click on permanent notes and open that in the sidebar?
Yeah, I basically cleared out everything.
Brand new.
Because my old system was pretty bad. It wasn't actually a fleeting note, a permanent note.
This is great. I get to be there for your first permanent note. This is awesome. I'd love for you to read through your fleeting notes.
Yeah.
Read through your literature notes. Read through the reference note if you need to. And hold on, let's scroll up a little bit. Why is literature and fleeting on different? Why are they children of reference notes? They should be siblings of reference notes.
Oh no, siblings of references. Actually, yeah, that's a bit strange. Not sure what happened there.
And then shift tab. Perfect.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the tripod structure that you want. Because literature, fleeting, and reference notes are all of the same value.
Yep.
They hold up the permanent notes. Like one is not more important than the other, but you need all three.
Okay, yeah.
And if you want to shift click on or actually you have all the notes there. So yeah, this is what I like for you to do. Your first permanent note is a little bit different. Well, that's not different. It's just, it can be anything you want. And so reading the fleeting notes, reading the literature notes, and looking at the reference note, it's about, I want to start a conversation on this. And you go hashtag, write it out. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'll start with the reference note again. I've read it a few times, but just to refresh my memory. Okay, so start with the skip to the fleeting notes. Extreme events. Things tend to return back to the normal levels. To burst and level of happiness after extreme event. People not regions. But to return to normal. Yes. People going through some lots of depression. Increasing levels isn't to find more stuff. It's only release temporary spike. May even leads negative, buyer's remorse, me and clothes. This was a personal example about how I bought way too many quotes and now I don't have space to put them. So instead, the trick is to improve our baseline level of happiness. This reminded me of the idea from another book that I read, The Almanac of Naveen Ravikant, who basically talked about happiness being a skill that can be learned, and the way you can basically learn to be more happy is to form a daily practice of seeing the positive of every time something negative happens to you. An example was in the morning, my internet was really slow, so I couldn't check my email because I was waiting for something important to come through. So instead, I just took that time to think about an idea I was reading about in this other book about ego and how that sort of applies to my life. So there, that was.
Can I stop you for a second? Like when people watch this back, they're gonna see a perfect fleeting note.
Oh wow!
not the capturing of the first note, not the first pass, right? Not the capturing, but the processing of a fleeting note. That's all there. It's you know what it did? Like maybe my standards are too high, right? But I wanna bet on certainty. You know what I mean? I'm gonna put my bets on certainty than complexity, right? Or no, let me say that again. I'm gonna put my bets on what I'm certain about. I'm not gonna put my bets on, yeah, maybe I'm sure I'll remember it next year. You know?
Yeah.
And it's how you, like, as you were reading through it, you started getting more and more excited and more like, yeah, into it. And that's what it should do. That's what it does. That's the standard that I have set for myself, is if I can read through my fleeting note second pass, the sort of indentions, that it puts me right back to where I was. Right. And I feel like you're there. What I'd like to just see the mechanics of you just create your first permanent note.
Okay.
I think, you have the information there. You can even close that block of text and go straight from the fleeting note summary and the literature note summary and just create your first index. What is that index going to be? And obviously, obviously your first permanent note is going to be broad. It's not going to be pinpoint. It's going to be broader. You know what I mean? And so that's what these top level parent blocks are. It's like your first note is the beginning of a conversation. You don't begin the conversation saying, you know what I mean? It's like you begin the conversation with introductions, or you begin the conversation with hello, good evening, or whatever that is. You don't go straight into you're wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's that.
Okay. To be completely honest with you, I think my literature note basically captures that quite well as a poem note, because it's a really broad introduction to what regression to the mean is. It's the idea that whenever an extreme event happens, we shouldn't take that as face value. We should realize that it's most likely a temporary, it's going to last for a small amount of time before eventually things revert back to the normal. This isn't just for like statistics. It also applies for other areas of life, such as, for example, happiness, depression, your mood, or things you're trying to build, or like the economy as well. Basically, like COVID, this is a time of, this is a basically an outlier. This isn't
Yeah.
something that's normal. Things will eventually revert back to the normal, to what it was before, like the pandemic started.
So what's the first index in your permanent note? What is that?
Okay. Return to normality, or steady state, baseline. I think baseline is a pretty good one, or I think baseline. Yeah, I think baseline is a pretty good one.
The conversation that you're beginning now is baseline.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, okay, if I was to add a permanent here, it'd be after.
God, you got it, by the way. So easy.
I just really like this word for some reason. It captures it perfectly. Extreme. Defense. Oh, let me just minimize that. So after extreme events. Changed. Okay, now I think extreme events. Okay, after rare extreme events.
I think they call this the thinking. I think they call this learning, by the way. I think they call this critical thinking. You got it. You're doing great.
I'm just trying to find the right words.
Of course, that's what you're supposed to do. It's a crystallized thought. Clarity. Clarer. Declarative.
Okay, after events, whether good or bad.
Remember, you can go back. You can go back to the reference note. You can open up the literature note. You can open up the fleeting note. All that information is right there. In focus, it's all right there. That's the beauty of it too. This workflow is all about focus and scope.
What's a nice word for pre?
Why don't you open up the fleeting notes?
Yeah, that's
sort of read through it again, because it's like the state of mind that you were in as you were reading through it. It just it puts you right there. It was wonderful to see. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to walk away so you have that sense of privacy, and I'm gonna let you do everything you want to do, and just I'll hear it. Just say, okay, I'm done. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so of X. More, the impact of extreme events is temporary. No. The effects of the effect of extreme events is often temporary. Okay, I think I'm done, Bo.
Can you just tell me what's going through your mind?
So I wanted to start off with a brief introduction to the idea, which is basically me saying that instead of using the words mean regression, I decided to actually describe it as briefly as I could by saying the impact of extreme events is often temporary and things tend to return back to their normal levels. And then I talked about its application, how this isn't just an idea that's true for holds for statistics and like complex models. It's also applicable for more internal things like emotional states or habit building.
Why
which
did you
base
why did you make that decision compared to like, yeah.
because this instead of me having to remember what mean regression was and trying to like Google it and going back to my initial understanding of how this applies to statistics, I can, the second part, the first part just reminds me that extreme events, like these broad terms like extreme events and normality, and then following it up immediately with emotional state and habits kind of reminds me that, okay, I can also think about this in terms when thinking about habit formations or things like happiness or depression,
Yeah.
like, and how these things are just they're just passing thoughts and passing events, and how eventually these things, like it's basically like depression and happiness, like or like extreme events that cause these sort of things are just temporary spikes, and eventually slowly you revert back to your normal level.
Hmm.
So I thought it was broad enough for me to see that event and immediately get ideas of how it can apply to various contexts.
And it's also the approach, like what I see is the approach that you have is because it's the top level parent block of a brand new Zettelkasten, you had that the decision on what information you were going to pull from the fleeting and literature and reference note had to be different than if it was 5 levels deep.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that, I think, yeah. What do you think about that?
No, that's exactly right. I realized this when I was writing my literature notes. I mean, the fleeting notes, the permanent notes, in reference to the already quite well-built conversations that were already happening in this in the shared graph. Because if I had written it without reference to that, I would have basically, most likely, I would have just tried to combine my fleeting notes and literature notes to give a broad statements that wouldn't have really added much to an existing conversation, or it would have just been a definition basically. But having those conversations going on already in the fleeting notes forced me to see, okay, so how does this idea contributes to these areas, and if they don't contribute it, where would it best fit? Does it deserve to be on an entirely new conversation? If so, how would I phrase it? So
interesting. I'm reading. So this is interesting. So can you do me a favor? Can you?
Yeah.
Can you? Oh, well. This is what we're gonna do. Just because I can see you wrote a permanent note in the Zettelkasten, the shared graph, and it's different than what you wrote there, right? And so I'm just gonna read it out loud so they can see it, right?
Okay.
Baseline. The impact of extreme events is often temporary and things tend to return back to their normal levels. This idea extends beyond statistics to areas such as emotional state and habits.
Yeah.
That's Jigar's first permanent note in his personal Zettelkasten. Utilizing the same literature, fleeting, and reference notes, this is what's in the shared graph. And this is nested underneath happiness, by the way. I'm going to read happiness first, and then I'm going to read his permanent note, okay? All the things you need in order to be happy are in the way you see and think in your world. His permanent note, baseline. Regression to the mean suggests the effects of extreme events like winning the lottery leads to a temporary spike in happiness. We tend to quickly return to our normal levels of happiness. Therefore, the way to be happier is to improve our baseline. That is interesting, isn't it? The exact same fleeting notes, the exact same literature notes, the exact same reference notes led you to a completely different crystallized thought, depending on where it was located in the permanent notes page or the Zettelkasten. And that,
I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I thought it was like my fleeting note that I wrote in my personal system was almost exactly similar to the one in the shared graph one, because I don't quite remember it.
Oh, did you do different fleeting notes?
No. I thought I was copying the same idea broadly, but it's actually quite different. I was a lot more specific in the shared one compared to the personal one.
Yeah, because you weren't talking, because you had a conversation already going.
Yes.
It's almost like telling a story to somebody, right? You're telling a story and say it's a joke, but you notice that the joke isn't landing. So you have to kind of change it a little bit, because the conversation is different. And so it's like me explaining a story to my mom is going to be different than me explaining a story to my brother.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
It's the same story, but the conversation is different. And that's what these threads of conversations are. This is going to be invaluable when people listen back to this. And can you take a screenshot?
Of my one?
Of your permanent, are you on a Mac?
Yeah.
You Command Shift 4. Command Shift 4 and then exactly.
Okay. I'm saving it to my clipboard. Where do you want me to send it?
Can you add that to the daily notes page on the shared graph?
Yeah, sure.
For underneath here. I just wrote on March 5th. I wrote here, and if you can nest it right underneath there.
Can you see my screen?
No, I can't see your screen though. I can only see.
Okay, fair enough. You said here, right? March 4th. Sorry, March 6th, right?
March 5th, I think. I don't know what I said. Hold on, I'm taking a screenshot too.
Okay. All right, let me just close everything. You probably missed the Andre parent lock. So
that is very interesting. Isn't it though? I mean, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I kind of understand. Only after doing it did I realize what he meant by consuming threads of conversations.
Okay, I just took a screenshot. Are you in March 5th? Here. You see it?
March 5th. Okay. March 5th. Okay, no, why am I doing that?
When afterwards, just post that photo for me, because I just posted a picture of the one in the shared graph, and I want them to be able to read
here
the
it
difference.
Is. There we go. That should hopefully work. There we go. Done.
Voila.
Can you see it? Yeah.
It's saying fire. There we go. Perfect. Look at that. Okay. Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting. Yeah.
Right. And every permanent, and those are your words. And so let's go ahead and connect it. How you're supposed to connect it in your graph.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Why didn't?
Is there a reason you have a to-do on the permanent notes?
That was because I needed to come back to it, do it. So okay. I'm just going to remove that.
Yeah.
That was a reminder to myself that I need to actually write this permanent note.
Are you using timestamps or no?
Yes, I am. After seeing how it works, I decided to indent it. Otherwise, I was just writing on the same, like I would have a timestamp and next to it, I would write the whatever I needed to write. So, so it was baseline. There we go.
And then you have a timestamp on this one? I don't see it on the daily notes page.
Indented in.
Oh, okay. Oh, but the thing is, you're underneath it as a sibling block. It has to be.
Yeah.
If it's a sibling block, it's a different relationship than a child block. And you can have two pieces of information. You can just you can keep everything where it is.
Okay.
And you
just indent it.
Exactly. But get rid of the one right above it. Perfect. Oh, and then indent it.
Okay.
And then you're perfect.
So, if I was to open this up.
Because it's a sibling block, it's okay.
Okay, fair enough.
You see, like, look what happens when you it's perfect there.
Awesome.
Okay, that's your first permanent note.
I am quite proud.
How do you feel? What do you think?
It's awesome, yeah. I'm really glad I attended the book club. If I was doing something similar to a Zettelkasten, but it was completely different and it wasn't really working for me.
What's the difference?
So I wasn't really taking fleeting notes in as much detail as you were. Mm-hmm. So mine was, I was going directly from literature to try and rephrase it in my own words. And because I was jumping directly, oftentimes the way I was wording it was really similar to the way it was in the original context. And that led to, after like when I came back to it a few weeks later, didn't make much sense. Like, because I forgot to adapt it to like the fact that it's no longer in the same context.
So, and then what happens if you go back to it 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later?
Yeah, it loses all meaning. It basically becomes this random statement that doesn't really make sense.
What's stopping you from hitting a critical mass of about 60 permanent notes in the next 6 months?
Just taking the time to actually write the permanent notes, like figuring out a way to schedule it into my day. Because right now it's a bit uncertain because I'm supposed to start a new job next week. So my time is going to change. So that's why I wasn't too sure about the daily habits, because my work arrangement right now is quite all over the place. So I wasn't too sure how to build a writing habit.
You know, the structure is so easy that I could write a permanent note anytime I wanted to. It's all there now. You know how to do it. Once you know how to do it, you can do it when you want to do it.
I sort of figured out that it's taking me somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how well I know the concept. And if it's a completely new concept, like it was for the initial first 2-3, it would take an hour and a half. So
40, let's say about an hour, right?
Yeah.
60 minutes times 60 notes, that's 3,600. You know what I mean? That's 60 hours. 60 hours worth of work.
Yeah.
To get to a critical mass.
I realized it was basically a trade-off between breadth and depth, because like if I don't write these permanent notes, that time would most likely be spent reading, in which case I would come across a lot more ideas, but I would only touch upon them. I wouldn't really understand them. So my current thinking is, okay, let me reduce the amount of hours I'm reading, like the amount of time I'm reading a day, and allocate a bulk majority of that time just building a fleeting note instead. So that way, in that reading time, I can capture ideas, and like I'm thinking like 30-70 split or 80-20 split for now. And that way I actually get something to show for it. Because right now I'm reading, but nothing, it's not really sticking. Or like
what? I'm going to post Brian's video tonight. Watch Brian Pagano's video.
Okay.
I walked through with him near the tail end of it. It's going to explain how to capture a fleeting note, the first pass. Okay. And it's like bombs could go off. Bombs could literally be going off around him when he's capturing his fleeting note. The first pass. The first pass is just when you're reading, and the highlight, that right there. If you watch Brian's video, you're going to understand. And I wanted to provide enough push so you could see through it until it clicks at 60 notes. Is it 60 notes? I don't know. It could be 40 notes. It could be 120 notes. I don't know. But it has to be that point where you see you looking back at you. And when that happens, that's what the purpose of this is. The purpose of all of these days, all of this work, all this effort that we've all put together into this, the purpose of it is not to finish this. It's to provide enough of a push to get you through to the critical mass. The hardest part is that. it's, I mean, everything is the hardest part, but you know what I mean? It's like you climb one mountain and there's another mountain. It's like, you know, fleeting notes. Okay, the hardest part is capturing. Okay, literature note. Okay, the hardest part is, you know, abstracting. But really, all of this has built up so you can build your own personal Zettelkasten and to hit a critical mass and to have quality permanent notes with fleeting notes and literature notes and reference notes all there. And then connected with nested sequences with relevant notes connected as well. And then you hit that critical mass. And then that's what all of this is for. Because after that, you'll understand what I feel. Oh my God, it's me. But I can't, you know, I think you've watched the other videos. It's like the shared graph isn't meant to be you. It's not your words. Yeah. But it's to show you what it looks like. And if it was in your own words, traversing, you know, serendipity, insight, relief, all of that.
True. I'm actually really looking forward to that. For now, during this time, for this week at least, my goal was basically never miss twice. So I was aiming for writing a permanent note once a day. But if I fail, I can't fail the second day. So far it's been going well. That way I basically build the habit of writing it, because right now I have quite a lot of free time. But from next week I'll be busy. So that way, until then, I just want to get the reps in, basically.
Yeah, I did the same thing. But it's tiring.
It is.
You do two in a row and your brain is fried. If you're doing it right, you should be hurting. You should be like, wow, I am exhausted. You know?
Yeah.
And it should be like that. And
no, I did my first one. Then I had to go for a run because I couldn't think anymore. Yeah. I came back, and just after like an hour or so, I did the.
Do you have an accountability partner?
I do not.
I definitely recommend. Listen, every single person that I'm talking to right now, it's like our group knows what it like. This group right here knows what it's like to have gone through all the writing exercises, all this crap, all this. Why is Bo yelling at me? You know what I mean? All of that. So it's like you all share the same bloodline or the same sort of war. You all went to battle together. And it's like this, you all share the same war stories. So rely on this community. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I mean, we'll probably talk about it Sunday, but I want you have to rely on this community because they understand where you are at. I can't understand where you are at. I have to remember what that was like. You know, but you have a group right now that understands where you're at, where you're all building 1, 2, 10, 12, 13 permanent notes, you know? And so I definitely recommend finding an accountability partner. You don't have to dance with everybody, just dance with somebody, either an accountability partner or an accountability group, you know? And I think, yeah, everyone is going to be willing to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay.
Yeah. I'll probably, try and find someone on Sunday, or I might just post it on the chat.
Yeah.
Chat page.
Yeah. And
I'm pretty sure people are interested in it.
And you understand everything.
I'm really glad to hear that, because
you do.
I was yeah.
And what you don't understand, you'll figure it out. You have the structure. Everyone has the structure. Everyone if you did all the work, everyone has the structure. It's not hard. It's simple. And you have your first permanent note. That's the first domino. And we pushed it together. Now it's on you. Get to critical mass. Get to critical mass. Whatever it takes, get to critical mass. Don't judge this until you have a critical mass of permanent notes, is what I'm telling everyone. You know? Once you get to critical mass, it's like, oh my God, what the hell is this? This is crazy. This is crazy.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
That's what's keeping me going.
Yes. That's what kept me going. Someone was like, you need to hit a critical mass. Once you hit a critical mass of notes, you'll see the clustering. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Then like 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh my God. You know, it's like a boomerang. Poof. And then he was like, okay, once you figure out clustering and critical mass, you can focus on project Zettelkasten. I was like, whoa. And it's just the next thing ahead of you. But you're on track, you're on point, you got this. I see the work, I saw the work. Yeah, my job here is done. You know, what else can I give you? Like everything is there. And yeah, I'm proud of you, man. It's a big deal.
Really happy to see that.
Yeah. Serious, man. Well, you know.
Yeah.
Put in the work. That's amazing, man. Okay.
Okay, so I think that's it. I'll just stop sharing my screen quickly.
I already did.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You got this. Yeah. You know, and you have the community, you have me, DMs are always open. And I also recommend, you know, see if you can help teach someone else how to do it. You know, that's the best way to learn. You know, just walk someone through a fleeting note. They don't have to know Rome. It's like, no, this is what I want you to try. What's resonating with you? What does that really mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? And then once they get to the aha, you're like, oh, that's a fleeting note. I get it. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of who I can walk through this through.
Well, as you're thinking about that, you'll start seeing it. Just like fleeting notes. You know what I mean? As you start doing as you start creating a Zettelkasten, you'll start seeing, oh, wow, I have a note about this in my Zettelkasten. Let me read about this.
That's precisely the reason why I want the Zettelkasting. Because I want a way to basically, it's basically what the slip box is, right? You learn about ideas, you understand them, and then you put them in the Zettelkasting initially, and then as you read about new ideas, you basically see how they fit in with these other ideas, which is exactly what I want to understand, basically.
That's it. That's the Zettelkasten.
Yeah. So yeah, I just need to experience that. I've got a taster of it, based on like the group shared graph, where it's going to be completely, I think, a lot more satisfying when I see it happen in my own system with just my own nodes.
No, let me tell you about this mountaintop, though. Let me tell you about this mountaintop. Let me tell you about this beautiful air. You know, you can breathe and you have the clouds underneath you. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. It doesn't compare to you climbing that mountaintop, seeing it and going, wow. Here's the path. I'm here with you. I'm here. I'll be the donkey. I'm the donkey, okay? I will be the donkey carrying the utilities. I don't care, man. I just want to see you get up the hill. And you got it, man.
You've been the guide.
Yeah. And listen, I'm telling you right now, I mean, you got this. If you need anything, reach out to me, okay? But I just really want it. I just want the DM. I want the DM when you hit the critical mass and you're like, Bo, thank you. And I'm going to go, great job.
I'm going to put that on the,
you know what I'm saying?
Reminder of that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but it was actually you. And we just changed the world because Jigar is a completely different person. He's thinking for himself. And that's the ripple effect. That's what I want.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. I got to get ready for the next one. You're awesome.
Right. Take care.
Great work.
Also, thank you so much for everything. This wouldn't have been possible without you.
Man, I got you. Get to 60. 60 in 6 months.
I promise. As soon as I hit it, I'll text you and thank you for it.
Yes, I got it. All right, brother.
All right. Take care. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.